Hello and welcome to this Crystallize live stream. This is, I think it's the 8th in our Headless PIM series. My name is Bård and I got Peter with me from the front-end team here at Crystallize.
Hello.
And as you already know, we're going to talk about languages and how to manage that in Crystallize. And of course, preparing your product data for a global market is kind of key if you're going to sell in several countries. And with Crystallize, you can really fine-tune the way translation or localization works on your product data and marketing content. And we'll take a look at the basics from adding languages through configuring components and look into some of the scenarios where you might want to have shared components and where you want to have them localized. There's some cool things you can achieve. And we will also discuss a little bit the possibilities for automation here in translation management, because sometimes you would like to automate and use some of the modern tools that are available for helping with translation.
That sounds good. How do we start?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we can start with looking at the screen here. So this is basically, we got a product. It's a pizza, of course. It's a pepperoni pizza. And here, this is only available in the English language. And what we need to start with is, okay, we need to define languages. And in Crystallize, this is done under settings, languages. And here you can add code, Norwegian, for example. And you can add another language if you want. I'm not going to try to spell Czech this time, Peter, because that didn't work that well. So I'm going to do Swedish.
This can be a thing. We can try it in each video. Maybe one day we'll do it.
Okay, so it's
yeah. Oh, actually, second try. You there?
Yeah, it was so close.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fun for Norwegians to type that. Okay.
How can we use this?
Well, first of all, you can set what's the default language. That's kind of a concept in Crystallize. For most international, that is often English. It's kind of like a default or fallback language. But what we're talking about now is we want to translate the content, and we first want to look at a little bit configuration. So, because as we know previously, a product is defined by a shape, and a shape is the structure of the product, meaning which components are there on product and or product variant level. So if you look here at the product shape, we can expand the components that make up the shape, and you can notice this switch here, because this is interesting, which is what we're going to talk about: localized content settings. So in Crystallize, when you're setting up a shape and creating content, there is a default behavior for how we treat localization, meaning that strings are by default made translatable. Numerics or numbers are not. Images are not made translatable, for example. So here you have the possibility of saying that, okay, the name should be localized. You can keep the default setting, which is for text, it is to enable localization. But you could also explicitly define it here. So this is a localized structure, localized component, sorry. And basically, that's how we can go through each of the components that you have that make up your product and define if they should be translatable or not. There are a couple of things to notice here. One is call it the simple components like a text line and description. There are cases where, for example, in product, you might want to add an ISBN number, like an identifier. And if you do that, you probably want this not to be localized. And same with the number, you can have a local temperature, for example, or local value for that particular market. And in that case, you don't really want to make the numbers translatable. So that's pretty straightforward. The defaults are pretty good because all text is then translatable, and then numbers and structures and media are not translatable, meaning that if you upload an image, it will be the same for all languages. Okay, so we have that as part of our shape, and that is basically allowing us to translate into the 3 languages that we just defined. We'll take a look at product, but we also have created other shapes here. If you haven't watched its earlier episodes where we created these product shapes and also landing page shapes, because here it's an example where obviously if you're going to translate a landing page, content like the title and description, you probably want to have localized. But what about things that are editorial, like how you merchandise products on a landing page? In this case, it's called blocks. And here you have a little bit different concepts, because what you're able to do here is to say that the structure is localized. And what does that mean? Because this is a complex component, so you can stack, for example, an image slide or a banner and a product listing on top of each other. But what if you switch language? And then it's a question, do you want to have the same structure on your landing page, or do you want it to be different? There are cases for both, and as with everything Crystallize, you do you and define what works for you. But often you would want to have these types of blocks with a localized structure. The reason being, maybe you have a primary language and you have, let's say you have English as we have, and you have a Norwegian landing page. Maybe you want to merchandise different products for the landing page in Norwegian versus the English, not only show the translated content. So this allows you to have different number of blocks and different content in the blocks per language. So that's super useful for creating market-specific landing pages with merchandised products, banners, marketing information, things like this. So the configuration is pretty simple. It's a switch. You can toggle it on and off on component level. And of course, if you say on a block, like a choice or a multiple choice, if you say it's localized, then all of the sub components will also be implicitly localized. So that's a little bit on the setup, but
so that's for the setup, for the structure, for the shape of the components. But for how does this work for the person who actually works with the content?
So if we switch here to, okay, so I'm back to editing, and I'm on my pizza pepperoni page. So basically here, now I'm working on the English language, as you see here. And what I can do is I can switch to the Norwegian. And here you get a couple of things, actually. You get the information that this doesn't have a name. It's pepperoni. And you might want to do the same for the product variant. And you can see you can go on and kind of translate the content, and you can switch back and forth between the English and then the Norwegian. Here it's just also saying that, hey, you haven't translated the product folder that the pizza is in, which you probably want to do. So flipping between languages is pretty straightforward, and then you can basically fill in the content in that local language. So it's kind of the simplest, most manual approach to this. Should we look at a little bit more complex scenario also, maybe?
That would be nice. Maybe a landing page.
Exactly, like because we changed the settings for the product, but also we have a landing page. Like here I have a books landing page, which maybe if I switch to English, we have some content. And here you have kind of the same setup where I have an English version, and I can switch to the Norwegian. No content here, so it says missing name. Bøker, that's the Norwegian. I'm not going to try check, but you
day.
can do. Yeah. Right, books. That's what it is there. Yeah, but notice here that the block section is empty, and that's the point here, because text content is the same. We have chosen that it's translatable, and we can flip between different languages. The blocks here are empty, but on the English, we have a banner. So what I can do is actually flip to the Norwegian, and since we said that the multiple choice component has a localized structure, it means that the content that we place in here, like I can start with a product slider, and you know what, I'm just going to translate the products folder because
That will look better.
Yeah, it's just annoying when it says it's not translated. So the warning kind of works. You want to translate it. So here we have the English version with content. We have the Norwegian version with a little bit of content. And then I can start adding blocks here. And basically what I'm able to do here is say, okay, I would like to merchandise these products on the landing page. And maybe I would like to add a banner text. So this will allow you to have basically different content merchandised for the Norwegian market versus the international or the English market. So this is super handy when working with landing pages where you want not just to translate the content, but you would like to have different content for the different markets. So that's basically the simple kind of round trip in terms of having the checkboxes on the shapes. You define your languages, and then you can immediately start translating content and localize also product listing and banners and things like that for the local market.
That's nice. That's nice. And I've seen we have some items with missing names, and that seems like a lot of work entering names and translating everything. And I'm lazy. I got a lot of coffee to drink. Can this be done somehow more easily?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a lot of the things that I'm doing here is kind of simple translations. I haven't translated too much, but the idea with Crystallize is everything is API driven, right? So you have access to everything, and everything is driven by events, which means that you can, for example, when you're on a product page, you're able to open up custom applications. So this is one of our open source apps, which is an example of how you can hook in a translation with, this is using OpenAI, so that you're having a translation tool that does the at least the suggestion for translation for you, and then you can choose to set it on the Norwegian variant of this Monstera product in this case. So that's a quite handy way of getting some automation in the translation process. And of course, these apps is something that you can build, and typically you do build and customize these types of app to make certain operations more efficient in Crystallize. And this is an example with translation. So I use this frequently when I want to translate content, and it's super convenient. And as I said, you don't have to type in all the product names and titles and descriptions of products just to have it in a secondary language.
That's nice. But I still have to push some buttons. I still have to move with my hands. Can I automate it even further?
Yeah, so you don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. So yes, there is. Well, almost. So let's say you're done with the main language. You have created quality content. What you can do then is also use the flows system in Crystallize, and I can send this now, the English version here for the Norwegian translation flow, and I send the English, so which is what I want to have translated into Norwegian. And we did cover flows in one of our previous live streams in this series, so we'll not go into full detail here, but basically here you have the possibility of doing automation, meaning that I'm sending the English product to the translation flow, and then you can automate the process of interacting with, for example, ChatGPT or a translation memory or translation service, which basically means it's firing off webhooks, and then you use API calls again to update the language in much the same way as what we did with the translation app. But here you can kind of make it happen behind the scenes, and it's fully async. So you can just send it to translation to X amount of languages, and then things can trickle in the background. And you can still here have a manual control over the translation process, essentially.
That sounds good. Some less work for me.
less work for everyone. So it's a quick round trip in terms of the capabilities with Crystallize. So as a recap, you can basically define any number of languages, and it's all Unicode, so any character set is good. Once it's defined, you can flip the language to translate. You can choose to configure components, how they behave. For example, maybe you want an image to be translatable if you have an image component or an image in a paragraph collection, for example. And you can choose it to be shared, and same with all components, which gives you the possibility, as we looked at, for landing pages, for example, where you might want to have different blocks on the landing page for different market. And then finally, possibilities to use the APIs and the apps, or what do we call it, the side-by-side view, custom views in Crystallize, to automate translation or listen to the flows for doing background processing for quality control and translation processes. So that's it for us today. Thanks for watching. There is a whole series on Headless PIM here. This is video number 8 in the series. So check them out, and if you want to be notified, you can, of course, subscribe to the channel if you're on YouTube. And that's it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye.